Hey there, it's Bill here. Before we jump in, a quick thank you to everyone who's been supporting the show on Patreon. Your help covers some of the costs and keeps this Recovery After Stroke podcast going after more than 10 years of me doing this solo. And a big shout out to Banksia Tech, proud supporters of this episode and distributors of the Hansen Rehab Glove by Cerebo. It's designed to help stroke survivors improve hand function at home. Whether you're early in recovery or years into it, and you'll hear more about this later in the episode. Today's guest is Carolyn J. Routh, who had a venous sinus thrombosis stroke at just 34. She lost her speech, her right side movement, and, for a moment, her confidence. This episode is about overcoming fear after stroke and how Carolyn found her way back to strength, gratitude, and purpose. So grab a tea or coffee, settle in, and let's get into it. Carolyn Routh, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. This is going to be great.
It certainly is. Tell me a little bit about what was life like before stroke?
Pretty normal, I guess. I grew up in a family business. My grandparents started a restaurant in 1946. So I grew up in the back of the restaurant and worked there. Always wanted to be a musician. And finally in 2001, let me back up. My husband Daniel and I met. He's the guitar player. And we started New Blue, and we haven't looked back since. We've enjoyed playing music, and I had two strokes. My two strokes right after we started New Blue. So everything was great up until that point. The band was going great. We were both enjoying what we did. I was just loving life. And then the strokes.
Mm-hmm.
So that set us back a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I have a feeling that New Blue was a country band.
Bluegrass.
Yeah.
We play bluegrass, and we do a little bit of country here and there. We even throw some rock tunes in because Daniel and I both had a rock and roll background. So we had to do a little bit of that just to satisfy what we came from.
How old were you guys when the band got started?
I was 34. And let's see, 34, Daniel would have been 25. He's 9 years younger than I am.
Aha, okay. I like it. I like it. My wife's 4 years older than me, and even she got the you go for the younger ones, and it's like, wow. Age is really, it's really not that relevant in my opinion. And as long as the two people are in it for the same reason and everyone's on board for the same reason, then that's cool, right? And that reason for me would be love, right?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. We started out as best friends because of the music. And in fact, we were best friends long before we ever started New Blue. So I really don't know when it turned from friendship to more than friendship. Those lines kind of blurred. He never really asked me to marry him. It was just like we both knew it was time to get married. And so we went and got married at the courthouse.
I love it. So he was definitely, I'll tell you now, he was definitely on board the whole time. He was thinking, well, how am I going to manage this? How am I going to get married to this person? And then I think he thought, why don't I just go with the flow, and then just spring it on her one day.
That's kind of what happened. It really is. That's a good description of it. But he was there through all the strokes because that's when we were best friends. We didn't get married. We started the band in 2003 and we weren't married until 2006. So there was a while there.
Yeah. What was the day like of the strokes before they happened? What were you up to? What were you doing?
Well, it really happened in a weird way. I had been having severe headaches like for 3 or 4 weeks. Went to the doctor. They thought it was migraines. They were going to send me to a headache clinic. And before I got there, one weekend it just got so bad that it was debilitating. And so they took me to the hospital, and I stayed in the hospital for the weekend. The only thing they really did was just medicate me, which was not good. I don't like taking a lot of medicine. And then they released me on Wednesday morning. They had done an MRI. The MRI came back and they said, you're clear. There's no problems. We're just going to send you to the headache clinic the following Sunday. And then on Thursday morning, Thanksgiving morning of 2003, laying on a hospital bed in an ER at Moses Cone. It's one of the hospitals here. It's one of the the bigger hospitals here. Surrounded by a team of neurologists, I had my strokes. So I could not have been in a better spot at that time to have strokes than where I was at.
Goodness, that is the best timing ever. And so that's the thing, like, you're in the hospital and you have the strokes, but before that, the MRI didn't show anything.
No. When I got to the hospital, they did another MRI. This is before I stroked. I actually came into the hospital the night before because I lost my speech. I was just garbling everything. In my brain, I knew what I wanted to say, but it just came out like mush. It was indistinguishable. So that's when they took me to the hospital then. And I'm also a diabetic. And at that point, everybody just thought I was having a very low blood glucose, and that's what was causing that. And then they transferred me from our hospital to the larger hospital late in the night, and they did another MRI. And after I had the strokes, my neurologist took Daniel back in some room and showed him the 2 MRI slides. The one at the previous hospital, like 4 days before, you could see the clot. You could see the clot perfectly formed, and they just totally missed it. I don't know who read that, but they need to find another job. I don't know whether that would have made a difference or not, but I would think possibly if they had known about it even 3 days before the incident, that they may could have started blood thinners and done something about it. So it was really unfortunate on the front side, but if it was going to happen again, I was in the best place for it to happen at the hospital.
Yeah, human beings sometimes make mistakes, and unfortunately in hospitals, the mistakes can be dramatic. Then you're presenting with stroke symptoms. They take a scan, somebody missed it or whatever. You don't look like you're having a stroke, really. It's not the common stroke signs or symptoms. They kind of go, oh, well, it's probably not a stroke, it's something else. And that's the thing. They scanned my head about, what I'd say, maybe 18 months before my stroke, my first bleed. And they never found it either. Mine was a blood vessel that was malformed, and they never found it either.
Oh, wow.
So sometimes, these things happen. And I went for a massive headache and all the real challenging kind of head situation. And they did every test. They scanned it. They did everything. Because it hadn't bled yet, they never found blood. So that ruled out certain things. But then they also missed it on the scan because the scan wasn't looking for, unfortunately, a blood vessel type problem. It was looking for other things. I don't know what. But yeah, these things happen. It's common.
Mine was very surprising because I had venous sinus thrombosis, and my clot was right here on the top of my head, and it was about the size of a pinky. I mean, it was very pronounced. And when my brain had started rerouting around that spot, thank goodness it was a vein. It was venous, so it was flowing back, or I would have probably not been here right now. But my brain, being the remarkable thing that it is, had started trying to reroute around the clot. And I stroked first. So that's when that one blew out and the blood hit my brain. And then that's when I stroked and they found the clot. So it was a pretty remarkable occurrence, genuinely. Very unexpected, and just, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen to me.
It's a remarkable occurrence. That's the understatement of the year. Definitely remarkable. I mean, everything that could go wrong went wrong, and then everything that could go right under the circumstances definitely went right this time round. What, when you woke up, or firstly, how long did it take for you to sort of come around and be back in the world again?
Well, I remember being in the first hospital. Again, I had awareness of what was going on around me. I just couldn't speak, and because I couldn't, I sort of gave up at that point. I felt like I was just laying there on that bed. Nobody knew what was going on with me. Nobody knew. I couldn't tell anybody what I was feeling. And so I had just sort of given up and just resigned myself to what happens, happens. Because I had no clue what was happening either. And when I got to the larger hospital after they did the MRI, or when they were doing the MRI, I am terribly claustrophobic. And I was aware enough to realize they're sliding me into this tube, and I freaked out. I mean, I can remember hands on me, I can remember the tube, and I can remember what to me sounded like the Wicked Witch of the East or the West, whatever it was from the Wizard of Oz movie, just screeching at me, stop moving, you've messed everything up, you know. They ended up drugging me when they put me in. And then when they found the clots, they had me totally knocked out, like for 3 days, just to try to give my brain time to heal. And they had apparently told Daniel that when I woke up, they didn't know what my cognitive ability would be at that time, what my memory would be. You know, they were kind of preparing him for the worst. So it was 3 days, and when I finally woke up, I saw somebody going out of the room. I caught it out of the corner of my eye, and I spoke to him. I cried out to him, and they came in there and checked me and got Daniel in there. And I remember the first time that I saw him after that, the door was behind me, and he had come around the door and walked to the end of the stretcher and sort of, touched my foot, and said, "Do you know who I am?" And I just started crying.
We'll be back with more of Carolyn's remarkable story in just a moment. But first, I want to take a quick moment to thank Banksia Tech for supporting this episode. They're the distributors of the Hansen Rehab Glove by Cerebo, this one here that I'm holding in my hand. A clever piece of tech that helps stroke survivors regain hand strength and function right from home. If you're working on your recovery and want to know more, there's a link in the show notes. All right, let's get back to Carolyn and how she learned to face fear with courage.
Because I remembered him, and so it was that was another one of those moments in life that really stands out in my mind. The first time I saw him again and realized I was kind of back in the world. So those few days though, I have really no memory of. I have flashes. They would wake me up every so often to make sure I would wake up, but that's all. Nothing was clear then. I would have a little bit of reasoning skills to know how I'm waking up, but I thought somebody was trying to kill me. That's where my brain was. I thought they were trying to kill me. Yep. Thankfully, they were not.
They were doing the opposite. So when you said you kind of resigned, was it resigned to the fact that something's happening to you, you don't know what's happening, you just kind of let it happen? Was that acceptance? Did you know you were having a stroke? What was that? Was it just resigning to the fact, or was it that you just were cognitively not capable of processing everything?
I think what triggered that mostly was I had been seeing a new endocrinologist for my diabetes, and my blood glucose levels had not been in very tight control there. I was just at one of those points in life, they were just kind of crazy. And I remember him emphatically telling me over a few visits, "You've got to get this under control, because if you don't, you're going to have a low one day, and you're just going to be in a coma, and you're just going to be a vegetable the rest of your life." And that's what I was thinking when that happened, and I couldn't talk. And I did have a low blood sugar about the time that this was happening at home, and they had treated it. They'd given me orange juice. So it wasn't a blood glucose thing. It was the stroke. It was all of that starting. But for me, when I just kind of gave up there at the hospital to begin with, in my brain, I was actually, because of my blood glucose being low, I'd done it. You did this to yourself. This is your fault. It finally happened, what this doctor was saying. You're just going to be a vegetable the rest of your life. And that's what I was believing. So that's why I gave up. And, what can you do about it at that point?
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah, going with the flow is probably the only thing you can do. And hopefully the flow goes the right direction and it goes in your way. So were you dealing with type 1 or type 2 diabetes?
I developed type 1 when I was just before I turned 11 years old. And I've been living with that essentially my whole life.
And what does it do? What is the dangerous part of it? Because I understand type 2, it's people's pancreas not being able to generate insulin, or the body becoming insulin resistant, where it doesn't matter how much the body tries, they can't deal with the high blood sugar levels due to diet and due to consumption of food, right? So what is type 1 all about?
Type 1, essentially, my pancreas is dead. It doesn't do anything. It produces zero insulin. So I have to take insulin. When I was younger, I took insulin shots. That was way back before insulin pumps. In fact, I can remember the very first Medtronic insulin pump that was invented, and they were pushing me to go on it. At that time, they were very large, and I was a child, and I didn't want to carry this thing around all the time. So I started taking shots, and that's totally where I get my insulin, is from shots. And I do have an insulin pump now. I've been on this since 1992, and it was a life-changing experience because now I can program how much insulin I'm getting. So I don't have to constantly take a shot. I do have a blood glucose monitor that gives me in real time where I'm at so that I can adjust as necessary. But type 1 is an entirely different beast than type 2. It's like night and day. A lot of type 2, like you say, patients can control it with diet, and a lot of people do. And there's a lot of oral medications and things like that now. Medical science has come a long way in treating type 2. Unfortunately, since they're unable to revive your pancreas, they can't do much for curing type 1. They have just come up with a lot of ways to make it easier to manage and be able to live a more normal life when you're type 1. But there's always that insulin issue. If you don't have enough insulin, like with type 2, and your blood sugar gets really high, if it gets too high, it causes a condition called ketoacidosis, which can be deadly. It can cause you to go into a coma and can kill you from lack of enough insulin. The reverse of that is low blood glucose, which is insulin shock and is a genuine emergency. High blood sugar, you need to get it taken care of. Ketoacidosis, you need to get it taken care of, but you're not going to die instantly with high blood sugar. When your blood sugar drops, if it drops too low, you're essentially starving your body of oxygen. Nothing works without oxygen. So it goes too low, you start feeling it in your extremities, you're dizzy. Different people have different symptoms that they notice. But it's a big difference. And that's when you have got to immediately treat it, or you could die very quickly with low blood glucose reading. So
Your
it's a lot different.
your doctor were your doctors saying we've got to get this under control, as in there's some kind of thing that you're doing that's making it worse? Can you make type 1 diabetes worse by diet or lifestyle or anything like that? Or is it simply you're not taken care of when you're taking your insulin and how much insulin you're taking? What's the issue with it?
That's all involved in it. You need to follow a diet of some sort of another to be able to control blood sugar spikes. You also have to manage your insulin because, like you say, if you get too much insulin, that throws you into insulin shock, which is low blood glucose that is immediately deadly. Or if you're not giving yourself enough insulin, or if the insulin level is where it needs to be, but you're overeating, that can cause your blood sugar to go high and put you in ketoacidosis. So it's a constant vigil to try to balance your diet with your insulin intake. And it can go either way.
Yeah.
But the two are in this dance all the time. And you're trying to figure out who's leading. And
Ah,
sometimes it's not the one you want to be leading.
yeah. Sometimes you have human times, and then you just do what you need to do to feel good in the moment, and then you pay the price later.
Well, exercise can affect it or does affect it. Emotions can affect it. Like if you're really upset, if you get depressed, if you're in a happy place, your emotions can have an effect on where your readings are too.
Yeah.
It's a very complicated disease, and a lot of people don't understand it. A lot of people just automatically go, because you hear more about type 2 really, and about controlling it with diet and meds. And so most people, if you tell them you're diabetic, their brain goes to type 2. Well, can't you control that with diet? I only wish. It would be so much easier if I could just control it with diet. So it's a constant education, an educational process too, with people that just don't understand it.
Absolutely. And then you decide that you're going to have a stroke, and now you're dealing with type 1 diabetes, but you're also dealing with what stroke caused. What did it cause to happen to your body? Any deficits that you're dealing with?
Well, when I first stroked, like I told you before, I lost my speech. I was just garbled with my speech. Couldn't make sense of anything. I lost my right side, my total right side. which was really tough because I'm right-handed. So that made a big difference. And the first thing that came back when I woke up was my speech. Thankfully, I got my speech back very quickly because I'm a vocalist, and without my voice, I mean, I was really devastated over that, maybe more than losing my right side. Not that I wanted to not have that, but you can roll somebody on stage if you need to, if they can sing. You can't replace your voice. So my voice came back first, and then with my right side, I had to go through a lot of physical therapy and occupational therapy. Physical therapy with my legs and learning how to walk really went very quickly. They had me walking within a few days, and before I left the hospital, I was able to walk. Now, I was doing what I refer to as the grandma shuffle. When both feet are on the floor and you just kind of shuffle along. And I remember one day when they were walking me down the hall with all the straps on me, so if I fell, and I'm just sort of shuffling around, and I thought, I may have to walk this way for the rest of my life. And for about a split second, I started to feel sorry for myself, and then I thought, but I can walk. It's okay if I have to walk like this. I can still walk and get around. My the occupational, it took a while for my hand to come back. They had told me that I wouldn't be able to for a long time, and I may never be able to button my shirt, zip up pants, tie shoes, brush my teeth, eat, any of that stuff. And so when I left the hospital, before I left the hospital, and it took me about an hour to do it, but I did every one of those things getting ready to go home from the hospital. I was just so determined that I was going to do this. I went probably for about 4 weeks, which ended up being about 6 occupational therapy visits. And at that point, they just turned me loose and said, we can't do anything else for you. My grip strength was higher in my right hand where the stroke had affected than it was in my left hand. So I was really fortunate. I attribute part of that to just sheer tenacity of just being determined that I was going to get better. Of course, Daniel was pushing me the whole time. You can do this yourself. You can do this yourself. I now have, this is strange, but if I'm going to sign an autograph or if I write anything, I have to focus on what my hand is doing and every movement that my hand makes. I couldn't sit here with you right now and be jotting something down or writing something down on a piece of paper while I'm talking to you and focusing on you. I would have to stop and focus on my hand to be able to write again. So it's little things like that. My husband says that my memory's a lot worse than it used to be, but what's a husband going to say?
Yeah.
That's his act. Well, you don't remember.
I told you that. Why don't you listen to me when I say something?
So I don't know if I can put much stock in that or not. That's an argument he and I have occasionally.
I wouldn't believe him either. Yeah. Well, your timing, honestly, it's really lovely to hear your outcome because your timing to have the stroke when you did was, the best timing ever. If something bad's going to go wrong, well, then you may as well just be in the best place when it happens. And I think that's exactly what happened to you. So it's not a surprise that you got so much back so quickly as your brain starts to heal and everything starts to the inflammation starts to go down and everything gets treated. Waking up those neurons again with therapy and rehab and all that kind of stuff is just beautiful, like perfect. That's, we very rarely hear such amazing, like good news stories after stroke. There's always a challenge. And I'm not saying that you don't have your own challenges now with it. Of course you do, but it's so much better when bad things go the right way. I don't even know if that makes sense.
It was a miracle. I mean,
yeah.
I tell people a lot of times, even when we're on stage and I talk about it, you're looking at a walking, talking miracle because it could have gone a lot worse, a lot worse. So many things. And I try not to think about that because I just want to focus on where I'm at now and getting through it and coming out the other side.
Yeah.
So I try not to dwell on the what could have been.
Absolutely. There's no point in that because it never was. So it doesn't mean anything what could have been. You could do the whole, it's interesting. Sometimes I do this in the car, when there's a close call and we nearly have a collision, right? But we didn't have the collision because even though I or the other person made the mistake, we were able to realize what action we needed to take immediately to avoid the collision from happening, and nothing bad happened. It was fine. And yet you still get all worked up about it. And, you shake your hand at the person that was driving, potentially having done the wrong thing, and you think that that's the right response, and it's really not, because it was avoided. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's, it nearly happened. Oh, I mean, an inch away. Well, that doesn't mean anything. You may as well have been 2 kilometers away. It doesn't make a difference. But I love what you're saying. How about, so who's the biggest person? Who was the person in your life motivating you the most?
Daniel.
Yeah.
Daniel definitely was. He's the one that got me started playing bass,
Yeah.
which turned out to be, I mean, it was a little bit after the stroke, but still, again, with my hand, I'm
Mm.
always working on my hand and making sure that I still have the dexterity and things like that, and have to focus a lot of mental power on my hand. And so learning to play bass was a great therapy for me because it was engaging both hands at the same time. It was engaging my mind. And he's the one that did that. He's the one that pushed me to that. He was always the one that was there for me to cry on his shoulder when I just felt defeated. Because there's always those times. There's always those times that you're having a really bad day, or things just aren't going right, and you have those moments. You have those moments of defeat, and it's the best thing in the world when you've got somebody there, especially somebody that's been there from the beginning
Mm.
and knew you before this happened. So they know where you're coming from and they know where you're trying to get to. So I got mad at him a lot of times when he was pushing me because it's like, just leave me alone. I can't do that right now. But he kept pushing in a good way, in a positive way. He kept pushing me. And
Yeah.
it turned out great. Although
Yeah.
he still pushes me a little bit, and I don't know if he needs to now.
He probably does. But
We have a relationship. He's still my best friend through everything.
you can get mad at him still. I think you have permission to, it sounds like you guys have permission to push each
Absolutely.
other, get mad at each other, get over it and move on. And then notice the growth. That's the beauty of it, right? Is notice there has been growth. Like, I think for me, my wife's not a pushy kind of person, but there's been growth after the stroke, both mine and hers, because she had to deal with a stroke survivor at home who was quite debilitated for a long time, because it was about, the difficult parts for us lasted uh, one stroke in February 2012, another one in March 2012, another one in November 2014, and then brain surgery. So really extended period of time in the acute phase, where shit's going wrong all the time.
Yeah.
And then after that is when we kind of start to learn how to, okay, let's try and move back into routine, some kind of life, etc. But even then, um, she doesn't have the experience to be a caregiver of a stroke survivor. She's not a nurse. She didn't study. She's not a doctor. So that was interesting, to go through all of that. And we had to grow because you couldn't be the same dumbass that you were before the stroke. At least I couldn't, because it
Yeah.
didn't work. It wouldn't work. When you say emotional upset makes your diabetes worse, so does emotional upset during and after stroke and stroke recovery. It makes things
Exactly.
worse. And the idea was to learn how to stop being emotional when it wasn't necessary, and then to be practical and to attend to the emotional part, the part where you're feeling upset, mad, sad, whatever it is, so that you can not allow it to affect you in a negative way when you're going through a tough time trying to heal your brain and get your deficits under control somehow or recover somehow. So I love that you guys had the opportunity to dance around
Yeah,
that time.
we did. Yeah, we did. It was I don't know where I would have been if it wasn't for him
Mm.
in there and helping me through it. And even now he kind of, when I'm having trouble writing or anything, sometimes he'll sort of, for lack of a better term, take the blame if I'm taking too long on something. He'll sort of field it for me so that people don't look at me strange.
Yeah, yeah. He'll deflect, right?
He will. He will. He'll kind of step in and intervene and take some of the heat for me if it ever becomes necessary.
I love it. That's excellent. So what were the biggest challenges that you faced? Now, I know that you had a number of deficits, but what would you describe as the one that was the biggest challenge to deal with regards to stroke?
I think just being able to get back into my normal routine in my life without being scared all the time. Because if I had the least little bit of a headache, or even if I didn't really have a headache, but I was just sort of feeling bad that day, my mind always went to, oh my gosh, am I going to have another stroke? What am I going to do? Do I need to be here? That probably was the hardest thing to overcome, more so than the physical, was the mental games and just being terrified that I was going to have another stroke or another seizure. And I did have another seizure 7 years post-stroke. I had been fine, no problems at all, and all of a sudden I just seized one day. But I was not on any medication. I wasn't on any kind of suppressors because I had gone for several months and not had any strokes. I kept pushing my neurologist to not be on it because my mom has seizures and she had been on Dilantin all of her life, and it had really played a number on her body with several things. And I didn't want to do that because I felt I'm still so young. I don't want to go there. And so he agreed to take me off of it. He said, but you can't drive for 3 months. You can't do this. You can't do that. We got to make sure that this isn't going to happen again. And it didn't. I had no problems after 3 months. No, it was not 3 months. It was 6 months. After 6 months, I was fine. No sign of any abnormalities. And then 7 years later, I just had a seizure. That was another one that happened at the perfect time. I was in the bedroom and I was fixing to walk out of the bedroom and back into the living room where Daniel was at. And I started, for some reason, I just felt my legs start to tighten up. And in my mind, I thought, you're going to have a seizure. And I launched myself onto the bed as I screamed for Daniel. And he came in there and I'm half on the bed and half off season. And he got me to the floor and called the ambulance for me. But again, that could have been very bad. I could have fallen. I could have hit my head on a piece of furniture, had a head injury from it. So I was really lucky. But even now that I'm on seizure medications, because that happened again, and I want to be on them now because I don't want that to happen again. There's still that place in my brain that sometimes I'll still go to. Oh, I've got a headache. Is this okay? Or have a weird headache like my pre-stroke headaches were, where they actually move. They're in the back of my head and the headaches would actually move. And I'll have those occasionally. And I always tell Daniel, I've got this headache. It's doing this. It's doing something else. So that, God forbid, if something else happens, he knows. He knows the symptoms that were happening before the incident.
Yeah, I have headaches all the time. It's such a conversation. That's all I bloody talk about is the headache this and the headache that. And I'd been talking about it for years, I'd think. I'm trying to remember when I first started sort of really talking about headaches post-stroke. And it's taken me probably, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years to discover that it was high blood pressure.
Wow.
Yeah. So recently I got diagnosed with high blood pressure because the headaches were so severe. They were around for so long that I couldn't do anything. I was, my whole days would go in, thinking if I do this, if I do that, or if I avoid this, or if I don't go there, or, all sorts of things. And it became high blood pressure was the issue. Took the meds. And then as a result of that, the headaches go away, the blood pressure's under control. But when I was going through it for 5 years or whatever it was, there would be spikes of high blood pressure. So it wouldn't last for days. It would last for a few hours and then it would settle down. It would last for half a day and then it would settle down for a few days. And I had days in between where everything was fine for a long, long time. And now it's just ongoing and constant. So now the battle is, how do you, can I do something to improve my blood pressure? But I'm not overweight. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I haven't got any of the risk factors. And it's like, well, I can't cut out that stuff to improve my health and well-being. So what do I do? What else is there? So now we're doing a barrage of tests to discover, is it because my blood vessels are closed up? Is it because of some other condition? Is it a liver issue? Is it a kidney issue? What are the issues? So we're trying to get to the bottom of it. And it's a bit of a blow to me. I kind of said to my wife, I had a bit of a pity party moment. I said, how much more shit do I have to deal with? What else has to go wrong? I'm over it. I just want to have a smooth run for a little while. I don't want to think about another headache. Could it be this? Could it be that? But it is not my journey, obviously. I don't get to choose, but I get to take action and respond and be proactive about how about how I might be making things worse. So I get to have a opportunity to reflect like, okay, I'm not, but if I was, I'd be able to go like, am I smoking? Should I stop that? Am I drinking? Should I stop that? And so on. And now it's like other things, it's like looking deeper to find more things that might be it. And also accepting the possibility that maybe it's just me and my body. And the fact that I am here on the planet where if it was any other generation of mine, before us, medical help for a brain hemorrhage wouldn't have been available in the way that it was for me. So maybe I've dodged one bullet, but I have to deal with all the stuff that comes with life, the gift of life after stroke.
Yeah.
And that part of that is you have to jump over more hurdles. I don't know.
It's the great mystery of life.
It certainly is. And that was my little philosophical rant, my lovely philosophical rant to try and wrap my head around, because that's what I find myself doing all the time. And my mum's favorite question is, how's your head? And it's like, it's good today, mum. It's good. Ah, thank God. She always does the, oh, thank God. And it's like, we're on top of it. I'm handling it. I'm taking my meds and I'm making sure that I'm not being slack about it, because I'll tell you what, I don't want to go down that path again. We've been there, done that. We just want to move on, right? We want to get on with our lives. Uh,
Yes.
did you have a rock bottom moment where things felt like real bad and you didn't know if you were going to be able to get back to life?
I don't think I would call it one rock bottom moment. There were a lot of days. There were a lot of days through that entire time period that I felt like that. Am I ever? I'll give you an example. And this is minor compared to everything else, but it was major to me at the time. It's amazing how many things really aren't that big of a deal, but when you're going through that physically and mentally, it becomes a big deal in your mind. So, not long after I came home, I had gotten lots of emails and well wishes from a lot of family and friends, and some people just from that I met on the road with the band. And I told my family, don't answer any of those emails. I want to be the one, don't delete anything. I want to go through, I want to read every email, and I want to respond. When I came home, I couldn't sit up for very long. There were no laptops. There was just the desktop computer. And so sporadic times I would feel like sitting up for a while, and I would go through these emails and I would read one and, oh, it's so sweet, and I want to respond to it. And I couldn't type anyway. I'm a hunt and pecker typing. So I would think, okay, this is what I want to say. And I'm looking at my fingers very, very meticulously and hitting the letters and the numbers. And I finally get this sentence all the way out and get my hand working. And I would look back at the screen and there were no spaces in the sentence. And I've always told everybody the space just fell out of my head because there were no spaces in the sentence. And I got so frustrated at that. And that was another thing. Am I ever going to be able to put these pieces together? Am I ever going to be able to sit down and write a letter to somebody or type something to somebody? Just the normal things that you don't think about in life. You don't think about when you want to write something down. You just write it down. There's not really a lot of thought process that goes into that other than composing it in your brain.
Mm.
And I couldn't do those things. The simplest things in life I had to struggle with. Eating, I still had to struggle picking up a fork. I could eat with the fork myself, but I still had to think about every movement of my hand and what I was doing. And that was very frustrating because I had always been very independent. Leave me alone. I'm going to go do what I want to. And it's my life. I'm going to go do this. And I couldn't do that anymore. I had to kind of be chained to my circumstance.
Yeah.
That was really tough sometimes.
The no spaces thing, that I get a lot of comments on YouTube with no spaces. Yeah.
Hey, somebody else is dealing with this too.
Yeah. They definitely are, and typing and rewriting and all that kind of stuff becomes a challenge. And it was for me for a short amount of time. But yeah, it's very interesting to come across a slab of writing with no spaces whatsoever in between. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how I felt when I looked at my own writing.
Mm.
I wouldn't let it go out with that. Now I got to go back through and I got to find where the spaces are supposed to
Yeah.
be. Some of those times I would just work on one thing and then I had to go lay down. Because I still had trouble sitting up for long periods of time then. Because I mean, your whole, it has such a great effect on your entire body.
Mm.
You're just exhausted all the time. At least I was. I had no strength. And I don't know if that was totally because of the strokes or if it was just I'd just been down for so long, and even then, I couldn't get up and exercise. There's a lot of things that I wasn't able to do. I was walking, but I wasn't walking very well, and there was just so many components going on that I'm trying to piece together and make work again.
Yeah.
So it was very challenging to go through that.
Mm.
Still is some
Yeah, yeah, but absolutely. It doesn't never stop getting challenging. That's what's really interesting. What have been some of the strengths that you've discovered in yourself that you didn't know you had?
I always knew that I was a very determined person, but I think I learned just how hard-headed I was, just pushing myself. Obviously, Daniel was pushing me a lot, but pushing myself to try to get beyond mentally and physically. And I found I had a lot more strength than I thought I had to be able to do that and get there. Um, I'm a really emotional person, and I let my mind play a lot of tricks on me, and I don't smoke or drink either, so it's not that that I'm doing something that's causing that. It's just my brain, and I am a what ifer person. So my mind gets to going and all that stuff, and I just really have to take a step back and not do that. And a lot of times I'll go back to the point that I was at when I had my strokes and think, I feel like I didn't die then because I still have a purpose in life. And I try to remind myself of that all the time. This bad stuff didn't happen to you because you've still got to be here. So that's a strength I think that I've found somewhere to go when I'm in one of those emotional moments and am strong enough to go there and bring myself out of that place that I'm at. That was a big deal for me. That's still a big deal for me because I get so upset over the least little thing. And
That's
trying to
important.
hide that's tough too.
Yeah, that's important to be able to go somewhere and just stay there uncomfortable and just, all right, I have to be here for a little while and then I'm moving on. I'm not going to stay there forever, but I'm going to experience the feeling and then work it out later. That's the thing, being uncomfortable with being uncomfortable is kind of how I sort of see it. And then going, okay, all right, I may or may not have learned something from that. I'm moving on now, and we can let it go, and then tackle the next thing when it comes up. So the band, I'm looking at the website nu-blu.com.
New
That's a
Blue.
that's a good looking band there.
Thank you. I'm really proud of those guys. They're just awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome. They're family. They're
yeah.
family now. We've traveled together so long and experienced so much of life together.
So how do you guys go about getting gigs? It seems like, and also you've got a section for free music. You've got I imagine a paid section. Like, how does the band work? What in this day and age when uh, the music game is controlled by Spotify and iTunes and people like that? How do you guys create a successful career or a band?
Touring, touring. Yeah, we tour very heavily. Um, Daniel does a lot of the booking. Primarily booking that he does is for more bluegrass events because he's done that for so many years and he's got so many connections in that field. We have a booking agency in LA called Harmony Artists, and they do a lot of PACs and fairs and like business conventions and things, and they've really come on and sort of taken us into an entirely different circle working than we were at. So that's a big thing. It's just touring for income. um, Streaming, that's where it's at now. The sad part, well, the good part about streaming is more people hear your music, which leads to more people coming to shows, which leads to more ticket sales, more income. However, the challenging thing with streaming is streaming pays very, very little per stream. I mean, it's like hundredths of a cent or less that you get for each play on most of these streaming platforms. So you're not really making anything off the music unless you're one of these huge mega stars that sell millions and millions and millions of records when you used to have physical product. We do still have physical product on our table. Hold on a minute, I got somebody calling in. I'm trying to get away from this. We still do have physical product on our table, but we don't sell as much of that now. That's that's one of those things that has just kind of fallen by the wayside. And Daniel always said when CDs finally went away, it would be when car manufacturers stopped putting CD players in cars.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about what happened, because people would come and they would buy, they would come to the table and meet the band and buy a CD, and then they would stick that CD in the player on their way home and listen to the music. And now there aren't CD players in a lot of cars, and people resort to streaming. It started with the younger generation, for lack of a better way to put it, but it's really spread, and most people are going to streaming platforms now to hear their music.
Yeah. So what's really cool is I'm looking at your upcoming today. What is today, the October the 16th where you are? Because it's October the 17th where I am.
It's the 16th.
Yeah. So you're playing a gig tomorrow, the next day, 6 days after that, 7 days after that, and so on. And you guys have got shows booked out until February 13, 2026.
Yeah. And that's a light schedule right now.
Uh-huh.
There'll still be things to fill in on that. There'll still be more shows to fill in on that schedule. So, and I never know when something's going to show up that he's booked. I don't, I always tell everybody that my job in the band is to be on the bus at the right time, know when to get off and play a show, and then get back on the bus again. He does all the routing and all that fun stuff so that I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Good partnership like that.
How much time do you guys spend away at any one time? What was the maximum amount of time?
Oh gosh, when we first started back in 2003, we actually went full time in 2011. We quit our day job, so to speak, and went full time in 2011. And when we did that, we would make 7-week runs at the time. We'd go out for 7 weeks, we'd come home for 3 or 4 days, and we were right back out again for 5, 6, or 7 weeks. So it was a very, very grueling schedule. We live on the East Coast in North Carolina. We spent more time on the West Coast in California and Washington and Nevada and all those states than we did on the East Coast those first 3 or 4 years. Again, very grueling schedule. Now that we've been at it for a while, we finally come to a point that the most we ever go out at a time is usually 2 weeks or less. And then we come back home. We're home a week or so with just, weekend stuff. And then we're out on the weekends, but we're not out on these really long trips like we were before. We averaged about 250 days a year on the road, give or take.
Wow.
Yeah. We travel in a bus though, so it's my home away from home, and that makes it a lot easier. I don't think I could do it having to fly and hotel hop. I don't like airplanes. I hate to fly. I'm not very fond of Heathrow.
Mm-hmm.
Heathrow's a big airport. There's a lot to navigate, especially when it's international.
Wow. So you guys are amazing. So life after stroke is pretty full on for you.
It is. And that's really a good thing, because it does keep my mind occupied with positive things, because I love to go play. I absolutely love what I do. I don't think there's a lot of people in this world that get to do what they love for a living and just be out and go and do. And I love the travel. I've got to see so many things that I never thought I would get to see in this country. And I was in Paris 2 years ago, and I never thought in my life I would stand under the Eiffel Tower. So that was a real rush. We saw Stonehenge. We actually were driving around London the day of the Queen's funeral.
Oh.
Yeah. So we talked about going to it, and I could not get in those crowds. I absolutely could not. So, but it was pretty neat to know that was going on, and we were right there.
Well, yeah. What's the deal with crowds? Just overwhelming?
It's just the time that it takes to get in.
Uh-huh.
And get out, and just so much chaos. And I knew that was going to be chaos, and standing that long. And I love people. I love being around people, But when people are shoved in like sardines, I get really uncomfortable. I always tell everybody I don't mind crowds. I just love them more when they're in front of my stage than if I'm in them.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. It's just a discomfort for me just being packed in so tight for so long. And COVID came along and it was the 6 foot rule, and I'm like, I don't mind this so much. I still have my space, but I can see people, I can talk to people.
That worked well for you. What sort of crowd sizes attend the shows?
It varies depending on where we're at. I would say average for most like theater shows or something like that. We play a lot of 300, 400 seat theaters. They're not huge, but they're a really nice size. Sometimes there might be 100 people in the audience. Sometimes there might be 300 people in the audience. We've played venues that there's like 8 to 10,000 people at some outside venues. So there's a really broad range. And we also occasionally do house concerts where you might have 20 people in the room or 30 people. And believe it or not, those are a lot of fun because it gives you a chance to get more personal with people and connect. And I like that. I like doing some of the small stuff too, and being able to make new friends and actually get to know people a little bit.
Some of my most favorite things that I've attended were small, intimate, whether they were musical shows or theaters or whatever they were, and plays. And it's because you get to really feel like you're part of the action, and then you get to meet your hero, and you ask them questions, and they answer your question, and it's really fun. I love it. We had an opportunity to go and watch a theatre in Melbourne quite a few years ago, which was about the famous Greek American opera singer Maria Callas, who lived in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and she even married Aristotle Onassis, who was Jackie Kennedy Onassis' husband. So,
Oh,
like,
wow.
she was a big deal. She was the biggest opera singer in the world. Anyway, the play about her was done in Melbourne, and we went along and saw her. And the actress that played her was just phenomenal. Like, it just felt like she had embodied this person. And we were sitting in the front row of this theater, which maybe held, I think it might have held maybe 300 people. And and as if the show and her performance and the performance of all the other actors wasn't amazing enough, there's a part uh, in the presentation where she picks a few people out of the crowd and interacts with them as if it's part of a live teaching.
Oh,
So
wow.
so the way it was set up, she was pretending to be. The show is about her teaching some students how to be artists, opera singers, etc. And it was done like as if you were at a university, and then you were in the audience, but you were a student listening and learning from
Oh,
her
that's
presentation, that kind of thing. And then she picks me out and she points at me and she goes, "You seem to have a laugh on your face all the time." And somehow she made that part of the show. And what a treat that was. It was such a, it takes, and I've been to heaps of shows, but that one is even more special, because you become part of it. You interact with the audience
that
and with
makes
the,
it.
yeah, it's just brilliant. So I know what you mean um, about those home shows. I couldn't imagine anything better than having my favorite band in my backyard. That wouldn't be anything better than that. If I could do it without anyone else there and I just had them to myself, that would be amazing.
You can make that happen. If you have enough money, they'll come.
Yeah, well, one of my favorite bands is AC/DC, so they probably won't.
Me too.
But they are touring in Melbourne in about a month, and I'll be going to see them for about the sixth or seventh time.
That's awesome. My son, we were on the road somewhere, and I get this phone call from my oldest son, and all I hear is this really loud music, and I'm like, "Where are you at?" He said, "ACDC." I said,
Yeah.
"I'm gonna kill you. I didn't get invited." That was when
Yeah.
Axl Rose was singing with him. So
Ah,
he got a big treat there, getting to see Axl Rose along as ACDC.
oh, wow. Okay, yeah. So I think this is probably going to be one of their last tours. Angus Young is just like an old man now. Brian Johnson's struggling with other challenges. So if they pull it off, I mean, it's going to be amazing. And maybe the last time. So
I'm sure it'll be great.
it'll be sensational. First time I saw them, I was a teenager, and it was for the Money Talks tour. I had never seen anything like it. I just I was just blown away. Couldn't believe that I was there. And then that particular album cover had a fake American dollar with Angus in the middle, and they threw them down from the top of the ceiling, and everyone was
Oh,
running
wow.
around to pick up the Angus money, and it was sensational. I still got a couple of those in my album cover.
They're worth something now.
Maybe, yeah. It doesn't matter. I'm not getting rid of it. I'm keeping it, right? So yeah, fantastic. I love it. I love it that you are able to perform and do the tour and be on the road as much as you can, and you're living, you're living your life. And I love that it probably is more meaningful for you now than post-stroke. I have a sense.
It is. It absolutely is. Because there's things that I didn't think I'd ever get to do, especially after the strokes. Who would have thought?
Mm.
Who would have thought that I would be able to go to Europe and just travel all over this country, go to Mexico, the Bahamas, just all those fun things that I get to do on a regular basis now.
Just a
So it's
bonus, right?
absolutely, absolutely. And the Grand Canyon, that's probably my favorite place of any place I've ever been. And I've been there multiple, multiple times. And standing on the rim of the Grand Canyon and looking out across it, no movie, no photograph does that justice.
Mm.
It's a totally, the Grand Canyon isn't just a view, it's a feeling. It's a feeling that kind of reminds you just how small you are.
Yeah, and how insignificant you are, and how it's necessary to just tell your head to be quiet and forget the stories and just move on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If there's something that you could share with people who are listening or newly diagnosed that may have come across this about your journey with stroke, what would you like to say to them? What would you share?
Try as much as you can to stay positive, and that's a big thing to say because the negativity will eat you alive from the inside, and that's just going to add more difficulty to everything you're going through. Something I like to tell people is find your happy. And some days that's a lot harder than others. But if you'll look for it, if you'll just find one little thing every day, just one positive thing, it doesn't have to be major, just one positive thing, it will help you through the rest of your day. Inevitably, that one small thing can help you through the rest of your day. So find your happy. Life is too short. I used to be horrible. When something would go wrong, I would say, I hate my life. I hate my life. This happened and I hate my life. And then I had my strokes. And I figured out, I don't hate my life. I love my life. I'm thankful every moment to still be here. And since then, I never say I hate my life. I haven't said it since then. I will never say it again. I might hate the circumstance that I'm in at the moment. I might hate something that's happened, or I might hate a bite of food that I just ate, but I never say I hate my life. And I think that's very important, and the finding you're happy is very important. If you just remember those two things, just put one foot in front of the other, figuratively, and just push on to the next thing.
Mm.
Just keep pushing on. Don't give up. Don't feel like you're at your end and there's nothing left, because there is something left. It may not be what you expected it to be, but there's something else out there.
You know that allocating a word like hate to your life because of a moment, it's such a trap that we find ourselves in. It's that whole, because that moment was shitty, my life is shitty. And we don't realize, I think most of the time we don't realize that we've done that. And to be able to have the distinction to go, that moment was shitty, or that food was shitty, or that person was shitty. Not all people are shitty, or not all experiences are shitty. It lifts a massive burden off your shoulders. And it actually is more accurate as well, because moments are shitty, but all the moments in between, they don't have to be sort of wrapped in the same attitude that you had to the moment before it, even 24 hours ago or 48 hours ago or whatever. So that's a really great distinction. I think like people in recovery might have a lot of shitty moments, but pay attention on the moments in between that are not shitty, and do not tar them with the same brush, because then it feels overwhelming. And that's one way you can improve your mood really simply, is just by being specific with what's happening right now rather than generalizing.
Yes.
Carolyn, thank you so much for joining me. It's thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I really appreciate you reaching out. It's great to hear your story, and I'm going to see if I can get some of your music, I think.
Okay, great. Do you need me to send you any links? Because I can do that.
Well, why don't we have a discussion about that right now? If someone went to get some of your music, where's the best place for them to get it where you guys get a little bit of the revenue and it doesn't go to the streaming services?
Hmm. Pretty much everything. Pretty much everything right now is streaming unless you want to order a CD.
Ah,
And you can order that from our website, newblue.com, nu-blu.com. So you can still order physical product directly from us. That's where we get the biggest bang for the buck. But if you're going to listen to streaming, Spotify, Pandora, Apple Music, I'm sure those others, those are the big three for me personally
yep.
that I've got on my phone. But I know there's a lot of other streaming services. Everybody's got their favorite platform. So, just go there. And even if it's just a hundredth of a cent, I want you to listen to the music. I want you to enjoy it. I hope you love every minute of it and pass it along to all your friends.
Yeah. Do you guys ship internationally?
Yes, we'll ship internationally.
Wow. Okay. So the CDs start from 9.99, which is a mega deal. Like that's sensational. And there's at least there's 6 albums, and then there's the Where You've Been vinyl and the Where You've Been CD. So there's 7 albums, and one of them is a vinyl.
Yes, it is. That's the first time we've pressed vinyl. That's kind of exciting to us. Growing up, that's all I listened to. My
Mm.
AC/DC vinyls are right over there. So vinyl was a big thing. Even when it scratched, you'd get so mad that your favorite vinyl scratched.
Yeah.
So when we decided to press vinyls, it was so exciting. And I remember we got in, they send you the test pressings that don't have any of the artwork just to approve them. And we got in the 5 test pressings. We had to buy a turntable. We didn't even have one. And my husband went and got a turntable and put it on. And he was like a schoolgirl. He was so giddy. There's just something different about a vinyl and holding it in your hand and to realize that, hey, we have a vinyl of us.
It's tactile. You get to see it spinning. You put the little needle on. It's not like a CD where it goes into a little box and it disappears and you don't really see it. It's tactile. You have to touch it a lot. You have to be careful with it. You have to position the needle. You have to close the lid on the turntable. There's so much to it. It's brilliant. And then you get that, crackly sound that the vinyl makes just before the track starts.
There's a lot more tone in vinyl. A lot
Mm.
of people don't catch that, but that whole process, it's just different. It's just old school. It brings back a past era of when that was the thing, and everybody was so excited to go down to the local record shop and buy a record. So I think I like the where things are now. I like music being so readily available and people can listen to it. But I kind of miss those days of going to the store and buying a record. I
I
do
agree.
miss times
Flicking
a lot.
through all the album covers and just going one at a time until you find something that you looks interesting. So for anyone watching and listening, go to NU-BLU, newblue.com, and go to the store where you'll be able to see those CDs and get them and get one or two.
Oh, and we got new music coming out. We're working on a new CD right now. So it would be great. You want to listen to it, go on to Spotify, Pandora, any of the streaming platforms, Apple Music, and go ahead and join our page there. And that way, when the new music comes out, you'll be one of the first to hear it.
Fantastic. Of course, we'll have all the links in the show notes so people can go there and find them and follow you guys on socials. Thanks so much for joining me. It is an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Nice meeting you. Enjoyed talking to you a whole lot.
That was Carolyn J. Routh sharing her powerful story of fear, faith, and determination after stroke. A huge thank you again to Banksia Tech for helping make this episode possible. Their ongoing support and the Hands and Rehab Glove by Cerebo keeps hope and progress within reach for stroke survivors everywhere. If Carolyn's story spoke to you, remember recovery isn't about being fearless, it's about moving forward despite the fear. You can find my book, The Unexpected Way That a Stroke Became the Best Thing That Happened, at recoveryafterstroke.com. And to support the show, you can go and join our Patreon at patreon.com/recoveryafterstroke. Thanks so much.
Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gassiamis. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. Medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.